Are special measures necessary in the year 2016 to promote women at North American universities? A new gender equity office has been created at my university to spend a lot of money on surveys and research to discover that yet more needs to be done to hire, promote, and advance female professors. It's outrageously discriminatory, and it's my subject on today's Fiamengo File. I'm Janice Fiamengo of the University of Ottawa, and if you like this video, please subscribe to Studio Brulé. In my recent video series on gender studies courses at universities, I focused on the enormous financial as well as educational costs of programs that teach as fact what are actually ideological theories and outright fantasies of female victimization and male privilege. I estimated that millions upon millions of dollars are spent each year staffing and running these programs in Canada alone. Obviously, the number in the United States would be much higher since the American university system is 10 times larger than Canada's. And my modest estimate didn't take into account the many other costs associated with academic feminism, not least the social costs of the infiltration of a corrosive ideology into nearly every branch of academic teaching and research. What we're talking about in our universities is really a massive feminist boondoggle that grows by the year, amassing ever more resources, ever more far-reaching administrative oversight, and a nearly impossible to reverse web of academic policies. Even as my series on the costs of feminist programming was being aired, I learned of the creation of yet another academic office to spend yet more taxpayer money implementing even more aggressive feminist policies. Just this past April, the University of Ottawa announced a new position, Director of Gender Equity and Diversity. The position was created by the university president, Alan Rock, supposedly in response to concerns raised by female faculty members. What those concerns were exactly and how many female professors raised them, I don't know. I can tell you that I've never called for an office to implement feminist policy, in fact, the opposite. In 2014, I was invited to complete an online survey on the status of women at my university. I was told the survey questions were, quote, designed to get a sense of whether female faculty feel that their work experiences at the University of Ottawa are comparable to that of their male colleagues. And if not, we would like to identify the areas in which women feel that they experience inequalities, end quote. Now, I'm not a social scientist, but even an airy-fairy literary critic like me could see that there was something seriously wrong with that survey. How could gender inequalities possibly be measured in any reliable way through a survey of female faculty perceptions without a baseline of data about the experiences of male faculty? And what was the business about feelings? Is that for real? Well, as I discovered, the survey was all about feelings, such as in the following sample. The survey asked, for example, quote, have you ever felt bullied by students, colleagues, and/or members of the administrative staff? With respondents invited to rank their bullying experiences on a scale of 1, never happens, all the way up to 10, happens all the time. Perhaps it makes no real difference that the question asked, have you ever felt bullied, rather than have you ever been bullied, but I think the emphasis on subjective perception reveals a worrying disregard for rigor, not that rigor is possible in a survey of this sort anyway. There's no way of gauging the objective reality or the severity of the reported bullying, and no way of comparing such alleged bullying to the experiences of male faculty. Likewise, the question, quote, to what extent do you feel that women and men have equal access to research space in your department or faculty, end quote. What's the point of measuring a perception such as that other than to affirm that a lot of women trained since childhood to see themselves as unjustly treated have strong feelings that they don't get the recognition and support they deserve? Some of the survey questions were even less concrete and more likely to elicit meaningless affirmatives, proving nothing about women's genuine position in academia. Here's one, quote, "Have you been in a situation where a student colleague or a member of the administrative staff was not collegial, was unprofessional, or interfered with your ability to get work done?" End quote. That's incredible. Who hasn't had an experience of somebody being uncollegial? And what does it prove except that human beings are flawed creatures who often fail to work together harmoniously? Perhaps a staff member was uncollegial because the survey respondent was being a jerk. Perhaps the staff member was uncollegial just because that's the way she is, her behavior having nothing to do with gender inequality. The survey went on like that, page after page, full of leading questions and loaded assumptions. And it was small comfort to me to answer no to every question and to write a furious message to the Committee on the Status of Women, listing the specific ways I knew that as a female professor, I was significantly advantaged, not disadvantaged, in relation to my male peers. And I wasn't surprised when nobody wrote back to me. Yet now, on the basis of that survey and various other undisclosed calls for feminist intervention, we have the Director of Gender Equity and Diversity who will explore the, quote, challenges and, quote, barriers supposedly faced by female faculty members. What barriers could those be? Are there any single measurable thing? When interviewed, the new director couldn't or wouldn't say. She merely noted that there isn't absolute equality in faculty numbers across all disciplines between male and female, a fact always seen by feminists not as the result of women's autonomous choices about their lives, but as a self-evident problem of sexist discrimination. Though numbers in the arts, social sciences, law, and education are almost exactly gender balanced, and in fact, in certain departments, visual arts, for example, female professors outnumber men, the number isn't balanced across the whole university. The new director also noted that it takes female professors on average about 6 months longer than male professors to be promoted to full professor, a context-free and, in my opinion, trivial statistic hardly worth the creation of a director of gender equity. But in the world of feminist grievance, such a fact is automatically brought forward as evidence of system-wide biases. The truth is that far from facing, quote, barriers to academic advancement, female faculty have an unfair advantage over their male peers and have had that advantage since at least 1994, 22 years ago. In 1994, the University of Ottawa, in line with universities all across North America, adopted what it called Policy 94 for the proactive recruitment of women professors, a directive to all departments and faculties to hire women whenever possible. To enforce compliance, the university's Central Committee required every faculty and department to present a kind of communist-style 3-year plan every spring, quote, setting their recruitment goals and describing the special measures they will take to meet these goals, end quote. In addition, in the fall of every year, quote, faculties shall present to the administrative committee a report describing the faculty's efforts and success, or lack thereof, and any new special measures they will take to meet their recruitment goals, end quote. Measures to promote the hiring and advancement of women included special funds for female professors to enable them to pursue their research agenda. In other words, just for being women, female professors have been for over 2 decades eligible for research money and relief from their teaching duties in a way their male colleagues aren't. And yet, still we're told that women face systemic disadvantages that must be remedied. What measures do you think the new Director of Gender Equity and Diversity will come up with to ensure that more women are hired, promoted, and supported at the university. What do you bet the new measures will be similar to the old measures? More aggressive hiring of women, just because they're women, and more measures to make women's academic lives easier. More money for research and more relief from teaching, just because they're women, and more propaganda telling us how important it is to hire, value, promote, and support women, just because they're women, and more propaganda telling us how difficult women's lives are at university. And women will take the jobs, take the money, take their time off, and tell themselves and others that they deserve it because women have it so tough. And to prove that, we'll hear a lot more from the Director of Gender Equity and Diversity about the fact that women on average take 6 months longer to be promoted to full professor, as if that's men's fault. There are many other statistics one might bring forward to paint a very different picture of gender asymmetries. The most glaring is the significant and growing discrepancy between the number of young men and the number of young women actually attending university. These numbers are startling. At my university, which is a typical mid to large size Canadian university, as of fall 2009, the breakdown of undergraduate and graduate students shows a large disproportion of female students. Out of 32,000 students then enrolled at the U of Ottawa, and it's quite a bit larger now, 19,844 were women and only 12,786 were men. That translates into 61% female participation as compared to 39% male participation in undergraduate higher education. At the master's and PhD level, the numbers are less dramatic, but still show a preponderance of female students. Women were 57% of graduate students. That's 3,031 out of 5,292 students in total. Only 42%, or 2,261, were men. In many faculties, the discrepancy is much higher than that. The numbers are only this close because of the number of male students in the applied sciences. In such faculties as arts, social sciences, and education, the female-to-male ratio is even more shocking. Now, in a sane world, that discrepancy would be the focus of a gender equity office and of concerted public conversation and concern. Why are male students declining to attend university? Are there barriers to their participation? Is there something about the climate of universities that makes them unwelcoming for men? What is it going to mean for society in the future that so few men are pursuing higher education? The silence on this subject is deafening. So how much longer can governments and universities and the media keep telling us that women are disadvantaged in our society and that generations of men will have to continue to pay the price in decreased opportunities, massively unfair regulations, and general societal blame? What kind of denial, obfuscation, and outright lying can maintain the whole fake edifice? How many women can keep participating in this scam without becoming morally deformed? And how long before a majority of men decide they're not going to give any more to a system that treats them as completely disposable and yet forces them to apologize for it? Too long, I fear.